So welcome. So first thing I do is I want to introduce you to Brenda McMurtry. Brenda's my able assistant. Basically, you guys meet my assistant du jour, or my assistant du meeting every time we have a meeting. I'm hoping that I won't be so tyrannical to Brenda that she will stay. That's actually not what happened. What happens is we have great assistants who then get even better jobs within the agency or whatever. We can never pay them, can't ever pay them what they're really worth. So I'm really grateful that Brenda's here. Thank you very much. And we'll go from there. All right, so welcome. Okay, so I'm going to just scroll through here and kind of give, I've sent this PowerPoint that I'm looking at today. A couple things to add to the agenda. We've got Sasha Wheeler in Granite District is not able to be here today, and she and Corey had discussed some tech resources. It's kind of one of the things that we want to continue to do is make sure we're all aware of what is available out there technologically. I know that I just kind of ossify or fossilize in my office if I don't learn new stuff. So, Corey, if you've got some things you want to share today, we'd love to have that.
Well, I would.
Okay.
When we get going.
So I'm going to give you some information about some legislative updates. I want to talk with you about the summer Civics Conference that we hope to plan on holding in June. We also have some pretty significant professional learning regarding something called standards that I will share with you. They're not the core academy, but that's probably the scaffolded kind of touch point that many of you might be familiar with from summer PD. I want to give you an update on the elementary social studies standards process, and what happens next and how you can help. We have somebody coming in today, Nina Sliding, who's the executive director of the Debate Commission. Did you know we have a Utah Debate Commission? And we have an executive director of a Utah Debate Commission. Utah is hosting the one and only vice presidential debate that will be held in up at the University of Utah.
Really?
So we need to think about, with her, how do we seize the teachable moment? Okay.
How do we get tickets to it?
Yeah, right. Good luck with that. I would encourage you to save a pastry
Okay.
for Nina, and then make sure you make a lot of eye contact as you hand it to her. The League of Women Voters just wants to encourage us to think out loud about what we're doing to encourage civic participation with voting, and they've got a voting rights project. Anybody know what the WHA is? World History Association. Okay. So World History Association has a national conference, and this year it's going to be here. It's a scholarly organization, but they also want to reach out to teachers. So we want to try to seize the moment there with whatever teachers want to be part of. Have you ever heard of Project Archaeology? Hear about it today. Kay's not here, the Utah Council for the Social Studies president. She's got parent-teacher conferences. I talked to her a little bit this morning about her priorities. I said, Kay, come on. Totally of her leadership, incredible at the Utah Council for the Social Studies. So the fall conference, always in October. So we will switch out her updates for some tech update, perhaps. So, and then I just want to kind of remind you about the Gateway to Learning educator workshops. For your teachers, it's important to know the registrations will open in March 2nd. And that's a really great resource for summer professional learning as well. College credit, not much money, a hero to those people out there who need those college courses. Other issues that people have that they want to share, that they're excited about. I'd love to hear, I talked to Chris a little bit about what's going on in Davis. I'd love to hear what's going on in your districts. Add to the agenda, where we can start with what you guys are up to.
Well, I have one announcement, or just, we have the AP Summer Institute in Davis every year, and it's online and open for registration. I just looked, we have 36 people registered. I've got a flyer here that has the website on it, but I can also just tell you the website. It's almost easier to just go to the website to share with your teachers. It's tinyurl.com/Intermountain APSI for AP Summer Institute 2020. So url.com/Intermountain APSI 2020. And we have more sessions than we've ever had. And lots of new presenters. That's the other thing. Like, our teachers love having, they'd go every summer, but they want a new presenter all the time, you know. So we do have quite a few, especially in social studies. So we have about 6 social studies sessions and only 1 returning presenter. They're all brand new. So AP Human Geography, there's a new and an experienced session. Both presenters are either currently on the test development committee or formerly on the test development committee. Brand new U.S. history is also on the test development committee right now. Both government classes, comparative and U.S. So we know they'll be small, especially comparative, but I'm trying to get more. I wish we had comparative in every one of our high schools. Do you? What I hear from the teachers that teach comparative is they say the kids in those classes say the countries we're learning about are in the news literally every day, every single day. So
it's kind of a good question in terms of how much comparative government courses. You know, I don't know the numbers. We can certainly find out. But where are you?
We have 9 high schools and only have comparative at 2, I think, maybe 3.
So we just have it at the 1, but we're bringing it to our second high school, and what they've done is they've coupled it with the regular AP Gov, and so the kids that are in that class are also doing a morning session for comparative, and so most of the kids that are in AP, large number of AP Gov.
What I hear from teachers that's just good advice, I don't know if you're trying to sell this, is what they say. It takes more than a semester to teach US Gov, but it doesn't take a whole semester to teach comparative Gov. If you do the US Gov first, and then because it's all the same components in the comparative, so you do you can do it really quickly.
That's how our teacher does it, and then she does a study session for the kids who are. And she only started it 2 years ago, and
they love it.
They love it.
Yeah,
it's a great.
It's popular. It's a good course. They just don't have time in their schedules.
Well, I remember that the people who participated in We the People at the high school level. I remember having lunch with some of those students, and they were so jazzed about the study of government after that We the People experience that they were really excited about taking AP comparative. So, Chris, when you get back to your computer, if you'll just email that link to Brenda, we'll add it to the
notes.
Or if you need to send a flyer, if you want to send, like, if you have this flyer,
I can do that.
And we'll Brenda, then we'll just send that flyer out to everybody. In the follow-up. So tell me about tuition. How does that often get paid? Or
So, I mean, there's easy ways and hard ways. The dealing with the money part of it has been the biggest pain for us because College Board switched over to one platform for all AP Summer Institutes, and we've never had to do it that way. The easiest way for school districts is with a PO. We just need a PO number, and when you are registering, you say, oh, this is the number, and you put it in there, and then it just assumes you're gonna have a registrar. She'll call the district and say, okay, who are your people? And that's the easiest way if you're gonna do multiples.
are these all guaranteed, or do they have certain numbers before they can?
So in the history, this is year 9. We've only ever canceled 2, and both times it was the same one. It was computer science A or computer science 1, whatever it's called, computer science A. And he's actually a local presenter. I don't know, he teaches, I think, at Kearns High. So is that Jordan District? He's Cody
Granite.
Cody Hendrickson. Absolutely great guy. Hopefully we can run it. The other one that's pretty small usually is computer science principles, but we run it with 6 people. It's growing in our district. So music theory is small. So anyway, I don't know that they're all a for sure go, but probably.
Tell me about who should go. Like, are these, like, what if you don't teach AP yet?
I had one of my teachers email me yesterday and say, I don't teach AP, should I go? Learn a ton about just, I guess it kind of depends on the presenter. If you go on the sessions that's like for new teachers, you'll probably get a lot of, this is what the test is like, and this is what the units should be like. And if you go to an experienced one, there'll be a lot more content, and here's great lessons, and here are topics that kids commonly confuse, don't understand, and let's talk about the difference between them. So I guess it kind of depends. If there was a teacher who was on the, wondering, if they called me, I know most of the presenters, could tell them, oh yeah, you'd probably get a ton out of it. Cherry Creek School District in Denver they rotate, their librarians rotate through the sessions, so that they just sit there and they're thinking, what could their media center add that would help this course? So they rotate all kinds of teachers through there.
Great, thank you. So you've got, Chris, do you have anything in elementary social studies from Davis that you want to report on, or is Monica?
Monica should probably be listening virtually. Not that I know of. I know that we're just getting ready to think about standards revision, and so. All
right, other districts, anybody want to chime in? On the spot reporting. Right. Yes, go team! Yay! Hey, you're here. That's great. Right. Okay. Let's talk about legislation, shall we? Okay. So, what is HB 152?
Is that the one that gets rid of the citizenship test?
Yes. That I sent out the audio today. Did any of you listen to the audio of that legislative hearing? Okay. Audio. So on my listserv, I sent out the update for teachers to be aware of the committee meeting in the House Education Committee recommended the bill to go out to the full House with an unanimous approval recommendation. The bill would repeal the civics test requirement, high school graduation. The bill's sponsor is Representative Elizabeth Waite, and she has done a lot of conversation with people around the state and interns and all sorts of people who've taken that test, and feels like it's a mandate that purpose. So, thoughts about the repeal bill? Questions about the repeal bill?
I don't remember whether it was your language in the email that you sent about that, or whether it was in excerpt from the language of the bill that said that it sort of trivializes the whole, because it's just a hoop to jump through. I think that is absolutely spot on correct.
As does pointless and potentially detrimental.
That was it. Pointless and potentially detrimental. Makes it seem like actually kind of a actually take it.
What's the push here to replace it? Like what is the, we talked about this I feel like for the last couple of years here, what is the thing that's what is the civic requirement then? Is there no consensus on that yet? Just get rid of this and.
Well, good question. Part of the rationale that Representative Waite is coming from is that since putting that test in place, we have new social studies standards for U.S. government and citizenship. Those alone, if actually taught with fidelity to the expectations and the standards, go far and above the requirements on a DOK-1 assessment that isn't a secure assessment that you can take multiple times, that you can wait until the last minute and then just take the modified assessment, which is 10 questions that are given to you orally, and you take those as many times as you need to pass. So again, the challenge here is the message that, well, it's better than nothing. Okay? If you want to say, well, that test is at least better than nothing, that in itself is a question for debate, right? Does it send a message that civic engagement is knowing what the three registers? I mean, it's not like knowledge isn't important, absolutely, but is that it? And by knowing these things, is that enough? Here's the reality. The repeal bill now faces severe opposition.
Really?
So there's a substitute bill, a substitute. That substitute would create a history and civics committee to study the most effective ways to teach history and civics, and would have recommendations of people selected by the Speaker of the House and by the President of the Senate and people from the board, and may or may not include, has kind of laid out that other option to study what's effective in terms of teaching history.
Good question.
Yeah.
What, in everyone's different districts, what grade do your students take this test?
Eighth.
Yeah. So we don't let our students take it until 12th. We make them take it, even if they passed it in the 8th grade, because their 8th grade teacher wanted to do it. We make them do it online again as seniors, as part of their government and citizenship class, to try to add some weight to it. I just feel like it trivializes it even further to say, oh, you're in the 8th grade, but we're going to let you get your first graduation requirement done. By the time they graduate, they don't even remember that they did that. It would be my feeling.
Also correct. A lot of people don't remember that they took it. Like, oh yeah, that? Oh yeah, we did that. Okay. So all I'm saying is, just so you know, 152 has been circled by the House sponsor. So what that means is she's holding it up because she doesn't want 152, the substitute bill. So she's hoping to be able to do a little more education with people about the assessment and push. I said my line was that this test is akin to having kids drive pedal cars to pass driver's ed. And the biggest thing for us to think about, for all of you to think about, is just that regardless of whether there's a repeal or not, what kinds of conversation are we having with classroom teachers about what it means to be civically engaged? That's the critical piece.
Say a little bit more about the source of the opposition, who's opposed.
I know that the Eagle Forum has come out in opposition to it.
And the
reasoning is that if it's good enough for citizens, it's good. The kind of the argument that was posted when it was initially proposed, that students need to have knowledge about the system of government and good assessment, and if we're not requiring this, then what message are we sending? I would imagine. I mean, I haven't seen the flyer, but they put a flyer out at every House member's desk with their opposition to the repeal. So we'll see. What I would encourage you to do is encourage civic participation on the part of your teachers, one way or the other. We don't care. I mean, we really don't. There's nothing onerous about this assessment at the state level. It's just what you guys have to do at the district level. And it's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's a hoop, but it's not that big of a deal. Well, that's fine. But it's like anything that takes away from instructional time that could be devoted to something else is still something to wonder about. So that's all. Yeah.
Well, the concern my teachers have is, what is this teaching our students about being civic minded? The level 1 engagement is really what we're looking for when we say you have to take this test to graduate because we want you to be good citizens. Questions are not lending to
So I would, teacher voice is important in this debate, and they should consider their responsibility as civically engaged people themselves to talk with their legislators about these issues. Their voices are going to have a lot of weight because they're the ones it's where the rubber hits the road. There's a second bill that doesn't have a number yet that kind of gets at this issue. I've got a link here I have a link here on the PowerPoint to an editorial written by Christine Cook, who's the Education Policy Director at Sutherland Institute. And she wrote an opinion piece in utahpolicy.com talking about eliminate the civics exam, ? Only if we can spur interest in actual civics. Her argument, welcome back from the land across the sea.
Thank you. That's why I'm late.
Great, nice, great. Just got out of quarantine, is that it?
Yeah.
So glad to have you. Those of you who are virtually, we probably should do a quick intro.
How are you?
Virtually, Dr. Noakes, Jeff Noakes just joined us. He's been in China for way too long, so welcome back. So Christine Cook mentions in this editorial, if we're going to get rid of the civics test, this gets to your question. Okay, we're going to get rid of the civics test. What are we going to do instead? And Representative Dan Johnson is working on a bill that would pilot civic engagement projects and would look at providing professional development funding so that schools, especially U.S. government citizenship teachers, can pilot the kinds of civic engagement projects, service learning, active citizenship, identifying issues that kids care about, that they want to work on, whatever it is, that can then encourage the kind of deeper levels of civic engagement that we want. And so his bill is kind of in tandem with 152. It would push for some real examples of civic engagement. Jesse's school district has piloted a project through something called Generation Citizen. It doesn't have to be necessarily an outside organization, but there are lots of nonprofits. It could be We the People, it could be Project Citizen. There are a number of possible opportunities for pushing for something better than merely the civics test. Okay, Desi and Corey, you guys have been on the call. Do you want to talk a little bit about that at all?
I think we've been meeting now for a couple of weeks. It's a weekly call for this legislative session to push this idea and try and drum up support. I think that people in Utah that are involved are Robert and Judy and people in the district, and trying to get all of the broader community to support the bill. Unclear every time we meet whose agendas. Some of the, it looks like we're all pulling together, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case, right? Well, how would this affect me, or how would this affect my school district, or how would it affect the programs that we already do or that we want to do? So we'll see what happens. But current push then for that bill is at least a pilot to say, here, let's try this out in a few districts. I think we find teachers who do this in their classroom or experienced it, amazing thing. Their students who try it love it, but there's an awful lot of teachers who would be reluctant to try it in the first place without this jump start.
I think a lot of educators know what good project-based or what good civic engagement looks like. They know it when they see it, but to actually change and learn how to change whatever instructional practices they have in order to make those kinds of things happen, when there is that mad rush to cover, is part of the challenge. And I think that I would imagine that some of the teachers that have gone through that would probably could speak to that, but they've also been able to kind of make that shift.
The reason we've been successful in our second year of Generation Citizen and our second is because we've provided them time. Throw it at them and say, hey, this is really great. Because let alone something new that can a shift in how you plan and do. But it's been the time for our to work together and to plan together. It's been very successful.
So Desi, when you got this set up, did you, are all teachers doing it, or is it a collective interest group?
It's whoever's interested.
Okay.
Yeah. And what's interesting though is, when you get teachers that are interested in then something is successful.
Other teachers come on.
Other teachers are kind of curious and they're like, well, I can't do it this year, but I want, keep me in mind or whatever. So in both cohorts, we have new teachers that have joined them this year. And we also have teachers that are kind of on the wings waiting to feel ready to take on something like that. But what's been critical is administrative support. Absolutely.
Part of that might be in both the Generation Citizen and We the People teachers I met with and talked with them about the program. They said that it was a significant chunk of time and it took away from what, I mean, it was replacing what they did in the classroom. And they said there's enough overlap that they felt okay in doing that. And the value was there that they felt that was okay to do that. Mention administrators, it is a departure from the regular teaching standards.
That's why the planning is important now. Figure out how to
Better
move that
dovetail it.
together, because you can do it, but that's where the planning comes in. And the teachers in their second year cohort see that much better and understand how to do that much better because they've been through it once, right? The new teachers are now working with our second year teachers, some insight that way, but just like anything in education, that first year experience is critical to giving us some vision on how to do that, so. But without the planning time that we were able to provide them, you know.
Right, and I think that's the cost that a pilot, being able to, if the funding is approved through this bill, it doesn't even have a number yet. So we're fighting an uphill battle on all fronts, but then the idea would be that bill would provide seed money that schools could then apply for grants to have costs for their subs and to have either outside folks come in or whomever to do the professional development with them. I love the fact that, Jesse, that you see the civic piece within the geo-inquiry. You know, that's not always a natural connection for people to understand, that when you're doing a geographic inquiry with the National Geographic ideas, that you're looking at some real civic issues, right? I want to, now that everybody's here, I want to make sure everybody online can also know who's here. So I introduced Brenda. Brenda, do you want to say hi? All right, so.
Okay, Elaine Holbert, Alpine School District. I left my house at 7:30 this morning.
I believe it.
It's so bad on the
Yeah,
freeway.
there's no,
It
like,
was-
you know, there's no tardy slips, don't worry.
I know, it was bad on the freeway today.
Well,
Anyway, Elaine Holbert, Alpine School District.
great, glad to hear.
Ryan Mueller, Logan City Schools.
Jeff Noakes at BYU.
And I'm Peter Van Orden with UCSS.
Chris Hall just left us because he knew we were going to do introductions.
Katie Scott, Ogden City School District.
Corey Little Neville School District.
Corey Merrill, Iron County School District.
Lindsay Backus, Provo City School District.
So thank you for being here. The meeting's being recorded, and when you the cameras should pick you up pretty well, and it should track. I know Neil Peacock is online. Neil, do you want to say hi?
Oh, Neil Peacock, Emory School District.
You're the voice of the Almighty right now, wherever you are. So.
Well, thanks.
That's
Some pressure.
That's right. And are there other people online?
I see. Here's Monica Flint with Davis School District.
Hey, Monica, nice to hear you.
Yep, I'm going to have to leave in about 10 minutes, so Chris is going to take notes on the elementary standards for me if you don't get to it.
Great. Yep, and we'll send this recording out. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I'm Megan Bench. I'm from Mountain Heights Academy.
Hey, Megan, nice to hear your voice.
And Amber Reynolds from Murray is online because she's sick and you don't want her there.
Yes, we're so glad you thought of us. Very thoughtful. Jeff will have your pastry for you. Great.
Amy Perry, Axel Ramirez.
Great. All right, well, thanks. Any time anybody needs to chime in, feel free. All right, so to actually have a couple bills around civics and social studies at the Hill has been, as you can imagine, very exciting. So we'll see what happens. The allocation request for the bill that does not yet have a number would be roughly $250,000 a year for 3 years for the pilot to be able to grant funds out to school districts to try in innovative approaches to best practices in civics. So who knows? We'll cross our fingers. We'll see what happens. We'll keep you posted. Engage civically when you feel inclined. Okay. Okay. So there's also a concurrent resolution for Holocaust education and genocide education. I'm going to get out of here for a second. So this is concurrent resolutions. It's protected, but it's going to be public. So the general sense here is that this resolution highlights the importance of Holocaust and genocide education, encourages the State Board of Education and local education agencies to emphasize the importance of this course of study. It's a resolution. Why is it not legislation?
Pass resolutions.
It's easy to pass resolutions, number one.
They're not as binding.
It's not as binding. It's also, I have to say that the part of Representative Arendt, who's the person behind this, the sponsor, she doesn't want to become, she doesn't want the legislature to become a super school board. Okay? She understands that mandating, I mean, you understand that you do have a mandate to teach petro-literacy. Okay? So I hope you're doing that. And I hope you're teaching mine safety, because I'm sure that's, and you should be teaching. I mean, there are so many mandates over the years that are just a huge collection of mandates. So this resolution says, we really want you to continue to focus on. And there's a reason why. It's because Holocaust education and genocide education has significant impacts in terms of attitudes. And so what you'll see in this resolution is some very specific language regarding the importance of teaching about the Holocaust and genocide. And it will be submitted. So I want to get down here to the important piece is that it encourages the State Board of Education to continue its practice of adopting K-12 social studies standards that includes the study of the Holocaust. Now, frankly, from my perspective, this is binding in that this is an important touchstone that we can then use whenever we look at core revision to say we're going to pay attention to this. So I think in some ways this achieves as much as a mandate would in terms of, because the problem with a mandate, it's very often it's an unfunded mandate. So you can tell people, teach about this, but it's not, there's no money to help provide professional learning. So what I can tell you is that we have that point is important, that LEAs need to make sure that they're teaching about genocide and other issues regarding this, including anti-Semitism, the othering of people, the racism, the white supremacist thinking that's all a part of and wedded into this work. Okay. So that is the piece that's going to be coming soon to the legislature. Okay. Any questions about that? Comments about that? We have a Holocaust and Genocide education web page with a new Speakers Bureau resource that, so we've got a lot of possibilities for teachers, have speakers come in, and these very often are people who are second generation, where their parents or grandparents were murdered by the Nazis. I've got a woman, amazing woman named Drora Oren, who's named after her grandmother, who was murdered by the Nazis. And you just like, you get gobsmacked when you talk to her and think about that. You know, all I have memories of my grandmother are her counting to 100 in Swedish to get me to go to sleep and making me amazing chocolate cake. And her memories are of mass extermination and murder. And that is an obligation for us to teach to our kids. So I put out a survey regarding Holocaust and genocide education to my listserv. And I want to show you, give you a sense of that. And the first thing I want to show you is that I have 68 responses across the state. Woohoo! So thanks for plugging it. Appreciate it. I'm just going to guilt you a little bit. But I am going to talk to you about the listserv because I still have people who don't know that we even have a social studies leadership meeting. And they may not know that there's a social studies person at the state, and I count on you to spread the word about that. There's some people who are actually district social studies people who were told by their district that no, they don't do a social studies meeting. So he wasn't even coming for a number of years. Okay? So we have to, that's fake news. We have to fix that. All right? So here, I want to just give you a sense that these are, I just want to show some of the quick responses to get you a sense. 97% of the people who responded are active educators and what they teach, both in elementary, middle school, and high school, the different subjects they teach. 73% currently teach about the Holocaust, and 70% currently teaches about genocide in general and/or specific instances of genocide. And then there are reasons why they don't currently teach either topic. So some of those are, for those people who don't currently teach, they're not in their standards, they're not age appropriate or other, and then they give examples here about the other, right? I feel it when I can. But this is where I want you to, it's more importantly, I think, to look here. And I don't know whether 68 people are a representative sample of how much you can extrapolate out in terms of what the needs are out there, because you've got to first identify that these people are people who have identified that they're willing to take the survey. But that being said, what we've got here is, about half the people feel well prepared to teach about the history of anti-Semitism. That means that the little chunk here from the blue, the red, and the orange are kind of either neutral or they disagree or they strongly disagree. So there's a chunk there that may not feel comfortable talking about anti-Semitism. To teach about the Holocaust, you got to be able to do that. I feel well prepared to teach about the role of propaganda when teaching these topics. And I'll send you this. I can send this link so you can kind of see these results. Most do teach about concepts of scapegoating and stereotyping. This question is kind of complicated with the white supremacist thinking, but I feel well prepared to teach about white supremacist thinking or racist theories when addressing the Holocaust or genocide. This is the one where a lot of people are just like, they're all over the place in terms of and it's understandable, right? That they might not feel comfortable or know enough or actively just address the issues. And then 84% would like more professional learning about teaching about the Holocaust and or genocide. Even if we can extrapolate out just from the people who took the survey, that's still important And then here's what they would like to learn more about. About half are familiar with the lessons, ideas, web resources, and other stuff that's available. Most would invite a guest speaker to come in, and then I've got their contact info, and then comments that they had to make. I can send you that information, but I do think it's telling specifically. Well, I don't know. What did you notice from what I just showed you? Any insights there for?
I wasn't surprised that the number one reason for not teaching about that it's not in their curriculum. Not something you would typically bring up unless you're doing current issues doing in every single class, I think.
I wonder, Robert, about teaching difficult histories in general, slavery and those things that carry a really heavy emotional load, and if teachers are really prepared to address the particular needs that students have, and those kinds of topics are, and I don't know, they may not even know that that's an issue. It might just be another part of the curriculum they want to teach, but there may be a need for some specialized training on teaching difficult histories, difficult knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. I have heard, even hard topics that raise emotional issues for students, like immigration, for example. I've had teachers say, you know what, I'm not going there. I'm not going to teach about it. It's like, well, who's going to engage in civic conversation around these hard issues if the social studies teacher doesn't do it? Yep.
I know we've had some issues in my school district. So in addition to doing curriculum for social studies, I'm an instructional coach, and one of my social studies teachers, I was doing coaching with her on this unit that she had, because she received parent feedback that it was a little too open and liberal. And so we tried to put her curriculum and the focus she wanted to have to a more neutral stance. And that's where in the difficulty in teaching these difficult topics is the culture in the community that you teach, when education presents all sides, and parents feeling like you're not spending enough time on one side because you're spending more time on another side. And I know that that's been a frustration that we've had with some teachers in my community, and helping them address that.
Have other districts face that, or do you have ideas about how to support teachers in engaging in hard topics? Or
the new standards have those civic engagement piece at the beginning of every one. It says we want students engaging in deliberate discussions about, I don't know if the word is controversial, but NCSS's statement about the purpose of social studies includes teaching about controversial issues, which I think teachers could probably use training about how to do that. Something like immigration or white supremacism is a little bit more controversial. I'm not sure that the Holocaust is particularly controversial, at least not in Utah, but definitely teachers need that kind of help, support. Yeah.
Well, and I agree, because we brought it back to the standards, and if what our teachers are teaching are defensible with the standards, that is the safe place that they stay in. And so helping them make connections to what that looks like in their classroom would be really beneficial, and I agree with that.
yeah, and I think that maybe case studies, like specific examples are in people. Have anybody had any successful work with people who had who came in and facilitated that process or provided good professional learning around how is it that you engage in these hard issues? You've had, you talked about going to an NCSS conference once where there was some session or someone that had kind of done some good work around that. Think about that, because we could possibly, because as we're gonna talk to you a little bit about the Civics Conference. Maybe the Civics Conference session, there might be a session there that might speak well to that. Okay, in terms of, it's one thing to say, oh, we want kids to be civically engaged. It's another to actually have them practice it. Practice the kinds of difficult conversations. When I tell people, look, social studies classes is like a year-long Thanksgiving dinner table where you're sitting with your in-laws and you don't agree with them. And you've got an opportunity to have that conversation a year long in your social studies classroom in a safe environment. Because these students are going to leave, they're going to be in their echo chambers for the rest of their lives, in their gated communities, or sleeping under the viaduct, wherever they are. And they have this one moment when they're in classrooms with people who have different opinions, and they get to practice what it means to be a member of the Republic. So this whole concept that we need kids to be able to think their way out of a paper bag. So that's something for us to think about in terms of resources, things that, skills that teachers can develop. Okay. Yeah.
ECSS has done workshops on that. I've done 2 of them. I did one on discussing controversial issues, and last year I did one on presenting controversial ideologies. I remember Jeff has also done one on teaching controversy, I think.
Consensus
on
building.
Consensus building. One on
I think
recap.
your consensus work is groundbreaking.
So we have done things like this already, and it's a matter of getting those resources and ideas to the teachers.
I remember the workshop that you're talking about at NCS now, just because you said one word. This was I could go back and find my notes, but the session had some controversial things that we read, and then we had to have these discussions in our groups and everything. And I was kind of, I don't know whether I wasn't super impressed or anything. But they talked about how common our teachers use the word debate. We're going to have a classroom debate. We're going to debate this. And she said, this was her recommendation, we should never have classroom debates. A classroom is nowhere for trying to shout down or prove that other people's position is wrong and your position is right. A classroom is a great place for a discussion. And the purpose of a debate is proving the other person wrong and yourself right. And the purpose of a discussion is to learn from the other person. And for me, that was this great takeaway, was for kids to know we're not having a debate. Our purpose is not to say you're wrong and I'm right. Our purpose is for me to try to understand where you're coming from and for you to understand where I'm coming from. And that's the purpose of a discussion. And something as simple as maybe even just teaching kids what words mean, like the difference between a debate and a discussion. And this isn't a debate. This is a discussion. That's not hard. And if kids know that, that kind of changes the tenor of the activity.
I know that structured academic discourse, I know that there are people who use like sentence stems that allow people to have those kinds of conversations in safer ways, that references back to texts, to others as having been the experts, and that Miranda Davis often uses this whole idea about we hold these things really close to our heart, these topics, and she says what you want to do is push them out here where you can look at them from all sides and get a sense of perspective instead of just like, oh, it's always right here. That's a skill set we need to kind of figure out how we can help develop. Essie?
Reflecting literacy. Your work is incredible, Jeff, what you've done. Books and bringing historical, foster that kind of, those kind of practices. Then the teaching is really facilitating, pushing students to cite the evidence where how they're making their conclusions. So, that is a focus that's sort of a bigger, it's sort of the underpinning of the different kinds of issues that teaching about sensitive or difficult.
Jeff, I think, is familiar with this, but there's an enormous body of literature back some 35 years ago by people like Jim Shaver and Bill Strong and various people that were doing them. I've done some research on that recently, and it's interesting because you can find some of their works, including collections of documentation papers, online if you look around, because I have found that some universities around the country who teach how to do this are actually posting, for example, there was an NCSS collection edited by Jim Shaver, which I was able to acquire online, and it has a myriad of articles about exactly what we're referring to, but they're actually some 30 years old. They have everything from the rationale for doing them, as well as techniques, and they're as good as anything I have seen recently.
It's great. Send us those links.
And of course, I could probably send you that book.
Yeah, send the links out. That'd be great. Yep.
This year at NCSS, there was one of the seminars for AP Geography was talking about the restructuring of the free response questions to say to what extent. So, and I'm still in the classroom, so I went back and we did our genocide unit, looking at exploration of each of these, whether it was an ethnic conflict or a religious conflict, and asking them to do their research from that standpoint of to what extent would it qualify as a genocide. And the surprising thing I found was it took a lot of the political aspect away, where they weren't feeling like they necessarily had to take the side of the victim or politicized it. But at the same time, they also encouraged, they explored other topics, like sometimes it may have been a religious conflict, but the reaction of the outside world that labeled it a genocide gave it that label of a genocide. But then America or Western European countries went in and gave it more aid once they labeled it as a genocide. But it depoliticized a lot of it. But I think it allowed the students to develop a deeper understanding without.
You feel like your students were doing better work then as well? They did more thoughtful work?
In a lot of ways. And I had a couple of them look at Idi Amin, which I don't think anybody's ever classified as a genocide. When they look at that and say, to what extent could we qualify this as a genocide? Really, they had to know the background information of colonization that happened there. They had response to Idi Amin and put it in context of the Cold War. And so it really brought in so much other information that I think if we just said, let's study genocide, it would have skipped over. And so.
I mean, that's the kind of academic work that they're going to remember. I mean, those students are going to remember that. They're going to feel like they actually did some substantial academic hard work around. I mean, because terms like genocide are bandied about a lot and you need to be really clear about them. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit about the listserv. Who here has you can just, if I send an email that, hey, sign up for this, you've got it until tomorrow to, here's the deadline. Who here's got a mailing list that you can send to? How many people do you think are on that list?
All my social studies teachers. That's it. Just in my
So
district.
how many?
About 170.
70, but not your elementary teachers.
No, elementary teachers is different. I don't have a listserv for them. I have to send it to like 5th grade CTLs, 6th grade CTLs, and 4th grade CTLs. And then I have to depend on them to then get it to their team.
So it usually doesn't.
Sometimes it does, but yeah.
about you?
Yeah, it would just be our like secondary social studies teachers, just maybe like 25, 30 people
Not elementary, but.
at elementary.
What do you,
I
what's,
send my students, and that's 20.
what about your fan club? Really should be a fan club, and then.
3, my
Yeah.
wife.
Right,
Alpine School District.
right.
I have just the secondary teachers. It's about 200.
Okay. Do you have a listserv?
I have secondary, but then I have the elementary ICs on that as well.
So the ICs are those instructional coaches or the?
Okay. And then I can send one to all the teachers in the district, but it has to go through.
Got to get approval before you do that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, right. Let's see, what about you? Do you have a
I have
listserv?
a secondary group list that I sent.
Yes.
I have all of my secondary teachers. As opposed to sending it out to my elementary, if it's a professional development, we send it specifically to our assistant for professional development. She'll put it on the website, but then I'll also put it in our weekly notifications.
You had some good responses that way.
I don't,
It's just kind of hard to know.
it's hard to know because no one ever says, hey, thanks for sending this cool opportunity to me.
Yeah, I know.
They're like, oh, great, another email. If it's an immediate thing, I send it out. If it's something that I feel like can wait, I will kind of compile what you send us.
Right.
Or if it's something we're going to talk about here, I do a summary and I send it out to them.
I send a monthly newsletter to all of them, and I compile everything in using the free version of MailChimp. Do that, and then send it out, unless it's an immediate concern, and then I target teachers.
Do you feel like you get a better response because of that, or talk to me about why you think that's a good.
Why I do it that way?
Yeah.
Because we're a small district though, so we get not to send out lots and lots and lots and lots of emails, especially since I house our admins on our emails as well, and we have a coding system. So like I bracket social studies. I'm also the AVID coordinator, so I have to bracket AVID if I do that. So they know what it is when it's coming. And so my teachers know I can just search for that and it will come back up with whatever Katie sent me. So I don't have to just search through all of Katie's emails. I just have to find the one that had that opportunity. That way so that they can find it a lot easier in their inbox.
Right.
And my teachers seem to like it because we also have a district-wide PLC 4 times a year. And they're bringing up like, oh yeah, you said that in the last email, the last newsletter.
MailChimp, you like that?
Yeah.
Constant contact kind of.
Well, on MailChimp, we just use the free one.
This is my February update. And I just want to get your feedback, because what I've been trying to do is kind of categorize them. So here's history, and here's world history, here's the suffrage, Utah history, suffrage anniversaries, here's stuff, general social studies, offerings, things like that. So I've been trying that just for the last few months to kind of like put stuff together into an email. It's not like I also send others, but tell me about that. Does that?
I like it a lot better than the way it's been recently, where we get one every other day. All the time to my teachers, especially if it's one elementary.
Because they get enough stuff.
They ignore it anyway.
Yeah.
They just.
Robert, I love this format because I can cut and paste it. So I don't have a single listserv with all the secondary teachers. I have one for each course, so I can cut and paste what I think would be most, targeted to whoever.
Yeah.
And I think they're more likely to read it, and it's easier for me to do that quickly when you chunk it like that.
Yeah, I'll try to chunk it even more so it's like history and then geography, but yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I was thinking is the way that I actually do the summary. So I do announcements, curriculum resources, classroom and student resources and opportunities, and then I do PD. That's how I categorize the summary that I send out, because so then teachers can kind of go through and go, okay, and they're done.
Yeah. Okay, good. Do you mind, will you send me an example of what you do? So, I mean, that might be a good example for me to kind of emulate. Okay? Either way, I'm just trying to figure out, the ways to get out there, because I totally get the fact that we got 68 responses to the Holocaust survey means that at least 68 people took a minute out of their really incredibly busy days to respond. I'm not like, we have had surveys where we've actually got over 1,000 responses in terms of some stuff around elementary and secondary social studies. But I know teachers get a lot of stuff. I'm just trying to figure out how to, especially elementary teachers, as we look at the elementary standards work, they need to be kept in the loop. And so I'm just trying to figure out how do we do that in a better way. One of the things that I'd like you to think about is at least including at the bottom of every email that I send is a link to how people can subscribe or unsubscribe to my listserv. Okay? You can at least remind people that if you want to get directly from the state board, they can subscribe right there. Okay? I'm not giving Jinsu knives away, sorry, and they're not going to get pastries, but it's a lot of good stuff that sometimes teachers don't know about. And you can't, even though it's like we have to like reach out in multiple ways. Okay. Great. So thanks for that. I'm try to keep those, and then things will pop up. As soon as I put one of these together, literally I send it, and then I get an email about some other event that is occurring tomorrow that I need to get out. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, that's the other issue, right? I mean, a lot of those are time sensitive, and a lot of the reminders, you might get the same thing over the course of
Right. Okay. We have a special guest with us, so we're going to go to that. Although I do hope teachers are teaching and helping kids not be too freaked out about the coronavirus, but it's going to have, I think it's going to have some incredible social studies lessons and some impacts. Do you want to, you seem like
I have a new perspective on population density. We lived in Guangdong province for 3 months, which is the most densely populated province in the world. And we were just on the 30th floor of the 5th building of a huge apartment complex, and traveled. We went from our city with 23 million to the neighboring city with 10 million, and then another city. I mean, I was in New York City a few weeks ago, and I thought, where are all the people? It's empty. Yeah, it's no wonder that they're experiencing some challenges with the spread of that. They came up with a name for it today, officially named it. I don't know. As I was pulling in the parking lot, they said it's COVID-19 is what they're calling it.
soon to hit a shore near you, right?
Yeah. And the one guy said it's going to be a year. There was a doctor that they interviewed that talked about, it'll be a year at least before it runs its course fully. And it's probably something that we'll have to live with for our lives. A great book, Plagues and People, that kind of lays out the way viruses evolve. And it's actually survival of the weakest for viruses. The viruses that make you sick but don't kill you tend to spread more. But that takes some time for those viruses to evolve. And so when it first comes out, it really packs a powerful punch. Then generally diseases evolve to the point that they're not as deadly But I'd imagine it could very well be that all of us are exposed to the coronavirus at some point in our lives. Hopefully it's evolved a little bit to a nicer virus by the time it gets to us.
There's a flu shot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, lots of Spanish flu analogies right there to teach. I mean, there's incredible social science lessons regarding current issues. The other thing that's also very germane with that is the xenophobia, the racism, all of the kinds of things that arise whenever a topic like this comes up. So great parallel conversations to teach students about as well. Okay, Nina, welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
I was talking with our folks here. Yeah, just pull a chair right in between Jeff and here, and love if you introduce yourself. These are social studies people, but if I were to quiz you, did you know there was a Utah Debate Commission? They probably wouldn't know.
Raise your hand and say yes, please.
They do now. So.
Well, it's really interesting. I could speak to the coronavirus too. My husband and he works in China part-time. So he left about 3 weeks ago to come home because we have a daughter getting married. So wow, it's just crazy over there right now. With that, and I think there's so much to say about not being afraid and to manage it reasonably. I mean, on China and its people is so severe that we don't even know. The risk is still relatively low.
So welcome. Let me just give you a little context. You've got folks representing school districts across the state, and we have about another 10 people, more or less, who are participating virtually across the state as well. So I didn't have you.
Well, thanks. I am the executive director of the Utah Debate Commission. Who we are is we're a group of all the major universities in the states, from Utah State to Dixie, are represented on our board, and then all of the major media outlets, the editor of the Tribune, Deseret News, KUED, PBS Utah, former KBYU, and then all the for-profit stations in the state. They came together in 2013 and decided to form an organization that would encourage candidates to participate in debates. Since we are kind of a one-sided state, some of the incumbents, there was a little hesitancy on their part to actually participate in debates if it wasn't necessary, if there wasn't an open seat. So our organization puts together each election cycle at least one debate, and they're held at universities, and then our media partners air them live for free, no commercial breaks, from the 6 to 7 o'clock hour. So that's been a great service. We engage lots of students at the university level, and Robert and I, we've had several conversations. What our goal is with the Utah Debate Commission is just to make sure that people are informed about the candidates and the issues that are impacting our state. And with social media and all of the access to just sound bites, it's really hard to learn about candidates unless you can hear them face to face. And there's so much to glean from seeing how they interact with one another and how they present themselves. So we really feel that debates are strongly valuable and educational as well. So we partnered with, about 4 years ago, we thought, we're one of only 3 debate commissions in the country, state debate commissions. Why not host a presidential debate in the state of Utah? We have the infrastructure to do it, we have the appetite to do it. So we started working on putting together a bid. And as you know, we submitted a bid and we ended up with the vice presidential debate, which we knew we possibly could end up with that. So anyway, we're partnering with the University of Utah to host the vice presidential debate, which will be 7th at the University of Utah. So in conjunction with that, we would like to develop, there's just so many engagement opportunities. What that opportunity does is it brings about 3,000 to 5,000 journalists, a lot of international journalists to the state of Utah. Everyone is going to be focusing on Salt Lake, the University of Utah, And we want students across the state to get excited about this, to have a chance to participate, to really know what is going on. And a big part of who we are too is talking about how do we engage in critical conversations? How do we have civil interaction with people that we might disagree with? And I think this can take place in kindergarten and 12th grade and at the university levels. Is really talking about how to have good conversations about tough issues, about disagreements. So we have an education outreach program that includes the University of Utah, members of our board. We're partnering with Robert, and we would like to get your input on if we came up with a curriculum that we could use at different grade levels that could be taught as a piece of this, and engage students in just thinking about how to talk to peers, how to discuss things where they're on opposite sides of an issue, how to move that discussion forward. And so I just asked Robert if he would kind of look at some curriculum options, something that's out there. 4 years ago, we put out an educational piece of kind of talking about how to vote in the state of Utah, how to register to vote, the history of debates, why it's important to listen to candidates, who are the candidates running. And we're going to do that again, that we will make available to both online and through the newspaper and insert in the newspapers. So there will be a little piece of curriculum. It has some games attached to it. It's really kind of a family or dorm center type piece to talk about. But we would just like your input and ideas on what you think would be useful and how we can make the most of this kind of once in a lifetime opportunity.
So yeah, I would just love for you to kind of think about what would classroom teachers be interested in, what would they use K-12 in terms of tapping into the larger concept of the debate and election, but also specifically the October 7th event, which is going to be obviously a teachable moment. There's some ideas you have. Yeah, you can have a discussion.
I think one of the things just that we have already tapped into is the idea of the media and watch the debates. I think that's terribly important because they're not only about the issues, and we could discuss for a long time the degree to which rational issues affect debates versus visual perception and so on. But I think this would be a great place to tap into what already started in this state on media. How to watch the debates, how to listen for various types of approaches, body language, and so much of that. And like I said, we could debate how much that affects things, but profoundly today.
Main issue for teachers is they just don't have time. They don't have time. This is a one-off opportunity, and to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to develop resources and have this great teacher. Anything that could be provided. Here's an activity. Here's a question. Here's here's something to look for in the debate, or a tic-tac-toe that they have to fill in. This happened in the debate, or whatever. Anything that's in post-debate questions to consider in the classroom. And not everything needs to be huge. There are probably a lot of teachers who are willing to give 10 minutes. There are other teachers who are willing to give 90 minutes. So kind of a menu of ideas. Share that with them. They would, I think most teachers would do something, because that's pretty exciting. And I could see in elementary just, what is a debate? What is an election? Where have, there's great geography lessons. Where have debates been in the past? Is this the first time Utah's had a presidential debate? In elementary, but secondary, I think.
I was going to say, I kind of thought about this in two ways, like the investigative, what questions do you feel like should be asked, and why would those questions be important? And I feel like that could be the prediction for elementary, and then they see if those questions they actually asked those questions. And the next level for secondary could be, and what were the responses to the questions? Did they provide evidence that actually supported answers to the questions they wondered if they would discuss?
No, that's a great topic. One of the things that we have discussed kind of as a group is having, if you could ask the vice presidential candidate one question, what would it be and why? And have it submitted through to the schools, have the districts judge. And I'm working with the Commission on Presidential Debates to see if we can sift up those few questions, have the winners actually submit the questions to the moderator of the debate. So that's kind of in the works, and I think we could get teachers excited. Hopefully we could get teachers excited about the prospect of that actually being in front of the moderator, and they're going to try and help us facilitate that. So I think that's a wonderful suggestion, and then kind of analyzing, did they choose our questions, and why did they choose the questions that were selected?
Do you know that, I mean, sometimes the debates recently even had like film footage of somebody remotely asking the questions. Are we going to have any of that capability this time around, or do you know?
For the debate commission itself, yes, we always have students ask our questions at the university level. We've even had high school students ask questions. At the presidential, it almost always comes from the moderator, unless it's the town hall. And we don't have control over the format for that at all, so it just comes. But they did say that they would help us kind of, if we had a couple of questions that we could submit the process. And I think our media partners, the great thing is I think our media partners would get behind this and write the story of the kids who questions were selected, and they could get some local press and attention that way as well.
That would be engaging to kids too. This is the backstory of a Utah kid whose question was chosen,
And I think the more kids that we get to participate, if there were 50,000 students that participated and my question got selected to be asked.
So I can't remember how long ago this was, but NPR, it was on the Daily, and it was a third grader's guide to the impeachment hearings. And it is incredibly fascinating to hear this third grader and the inquisitive questions that they had about what was happening, and the factual conversation that played out with the people that he got to go interview. And maybe they're developing a guide to watching a vice presidential debate, so that at each level, in elementary, in junior high, and in high school, kids have entry points to help them understand what's happening on a level that is engaging to them.
Well, and the Commission on Presidential Debates, they actually have a debate watch program where your school can be registered.
Oh, cool.
And then they list your school as one of the official debate watch schools. So your school gets credit for that. And so we're going to kind of put that through the pipeline so that schools can know to organize and to gather and to watch this. In 2016 and 2018, we developed a one-page app, kind of what you were talking about, what to look for in a debate, that included body language, that included kind of civility, accurateness in answering questions. I mean, just kind of what to do, the to-dos and not to-dos in a debate. We'll do that again, and I think that's a really great suggestion, having different time pieces. This is a 10-minute activity, 30-minute, 90-minute. And we will do those. What we're doing is there will be an official website for the debate, and we'll have a page purely dedicated to curriculum and for teachers, so that teachers can go to that page, pull off anything that they want, and be able to utilize it in their classes. So I think the important thing is for us to know what's the best way to get the word out about this, and what you guys would like to see included in that website page of possible activities and events. But I think Debate Watch at any level would be fantastic. And like I said, they're incentivizing the Commission on Presidential Debates for schools to sign up.
Love to see an opportunity to have hosted in our district for the night before. Talk to our students, say, because they would want to know, why does it matter when it really ought to matter to us. What's your perspective on this?
And so that's another thing we're really working on, is having, it's hard because it could work out the night before. We're working on that piece. But if you think that there's interest, in gathering of students, I think if we can arrange, how many students would want to be involved. We've already talked to the commission about kind of channeling some students down, or some journalists downtown to be available to do this. Their time is really limited, the day of the debate, but the night before there might be an opportunity.
Well, and if the district could pay for another day with them, and we said, well, talk to our students during the day, maybe. It would be very valuable.
Yeah. Journalist students would be fantastic.
Absolutely invaluable. We need it. Fun.
Do you guys all know David Magleby? So he's very passionate about this, and he's been working with us on this. That very thing is getting university students, but if it's university students, it should be K through 12, any student, high school students as well, that would like to be involved and ask these journalist questions. So we're working on that aspect.
But the journalism classes, even the school, I don't know, what's the state of affairs in your schools regarding journalism and
mixed?
Totally get social studies classes as well, but I don't.
But in ELA classes, they might be interested in logical fallacies or something. I could see curriculum where, especially if you pull clips from previous debates where someone used a straw man argument or adherent or whatever. And I could see a teacher teaching those and then watching a clip from a debate where it's, really demonstrated. And then you go into the debate looking for these kinds of things. Might be appealing to an ELA.
Tom, I guess Debate Watch, I've never heard of that. Could you tell us more about Debate Watch and what that entails? Because I'm thinking do they do Debate Watch when it's happening at the school? Is it?
All of our university partners will be doing it. So the University of Utah will have a Debate Watch program, but Dixie State, Southern Utah University, UVU, BYU, they'll all have Debate Watch parties. But I don't see why high schools could not have Debate Watch parties where it's live streamed. They are just kind of doing the final stages of the Commission on Presidential Debates. They haven't rolled out the program yet, but they will be rolling it out, where you can sign up to be an official Debate Watch school. And so as soon as I get the details, I'll forward it to Robert.
And I would imagine a lot of this stuff has to be set. It's October 7th is the vice presidential debate.
Yeah.
But a lot of those things are going to need to be set up. They're going to need to be put into the school year.
Yeah, because October is like 10 minutes after school year starts.
Right. So we're hoping to have all of this in place by May, for you guys, so that it's accessible, so you know what's there. So that's kind of our goal. And the Commission on Presidential Debates, it's imminent. It will be really soon when they have that officially established and going.
Presidential debates, the schedule, is this about midstream? Is that October 7th about the middle of when other debates may or may not occur? Because there's not even commitment right now.
So it starts at Notre Dame, and then it comes to Utah, Michigan, and ends at Belmont. So Michigan is hosting the town hall. Notre Dame is hosting the first presidential, and Belmont will hold the final. So we're second.
So yeah, other ideas, especially, the issue for me is always elementary opportunities for elementary kids. This is, especially fifth grade teachers, this is a great tie into the standards.
I think you could set a simple elementary curriculum of something like you say, I say, we say. And you say is what your opponent says, and you really listen. And then I say, I get to say what I want, even if it's not the same thing as what somebody else says. It's okay to voice my opinion that's different from somebody else's. And we say is, kind of coming together and finding common ground.
That's really good. I think there's so much possibility with this. And I think if we can, utilize any interested teachers in helping us kind of develop what's appropriate. Because on our board are really university level. We have each Hinckley Institute, Walker Institute. We have the political science departments at the university level represented, but not K through 12. So any help that we could get kind of developing K through 12 would be fantastic.
My hope is that there's a lot of stuff that's going to get developed nationally that we can use, right? I mean, if there's going to be curriculum, because developing good curriculum is really time consuming and can be expensive. So that being said, still those ideas that like what Jeff just mentioned, that could be pretty powerful and pretty relatively simple to put together.
And I think just this essay contest alone and kind of thinking about what is important to you as a third grader or as a fifth grader, what would you like to hear from these candidates and why? Why is that important to you? Helping them kind of define and have a voice of why this matters to me, why it matters to Utah.
Great opportunity. I would love the link, the third graders guide to the impeachment that you talked about.
Oh, send that. Yeah.
I think sometimes, especially for elementary teachers, being able to see what kids are thinking they're doing is a good reminder that they can take things up a notch with the kinds of instruction they're providing.
So if we were to do this contest, how would you take it down to kindergarten? I mean, at what grade would you kind of kick it in?
Are y'all clear with the contest, the idea?
Submitting the questions.
So the idea here would be they would submit a question, they would explain why they think that question is important, right? And it's very succinct in terms of the...
A word limit, obviously, just because of resources, timing. It would kind of be similar to what happened in the Olympics, where we had an essay contest during the Olympics, and the districts judged and submitted the winners on up. And we'd kind of run it the same way.
I think you would be amazed at the questions the kids would ask, younger kids would ask. I would open it up to as low as you have the feasibility to be able to, I mean, the issue is just being able to, I mean, that's part of the scalability.
Well, you're going to rely on the districts to filter a lot of that, right?
Right. We'll have the districts, if we go down to kindergarten, first grade, we'd have like K through third through sixth or fifth, sixth through ninth, and
I'd offer them all, and if a district doesn't feel comfortable offering the K through 3, then they don't have to.
Right.
Or if you don't get a good question out of K through
Right,
3.
right,
So
exactly.
we probably have, four winners that we actually submit to moderator. Right.
You're willing to read those questions or
Yes.
figure out a committee that would look
Yeah,
at those?
I'm willing.
Somebody else.
And we already have a question vetting committee established on our board, so they could easily kind of read through. There's how many districts in the state?
41 and then 100.
So from that, I think our committee could handle kind of, and maybe a representative or two, if interested from this group, it would be great to have on there as well. But we're open to any other suggestions or ideas. I mean, we just want to have, because of the uniqueness of us partnering with, we're the only commission has never dealt with a state debate commission that has a infrastructure in place and can reach out. So I think our potential is we're only limited by our time and resources, which is always the case, but there's so much potential here and so much excitement.
Well, the other thing that I'm excited about is this is not just a one-off. What we've got is a debate commission that's looking at, how far down do you go in terms of local,
We go to the congressional level. So this year we'll do primary debate. So on June 1st and 2nd, we'll do all of whoever's in a primary contest, we will do a primary debate. So that will include the governor and many of the congressional districts. And then this fall, we'll do all of the general election debates to the congressional level. And high school students, just Robert, you can give them my contact information. High school students are always welcome to join the audience to submit questions. We love it. We've had them on TV before asking questions.
I think our government teachers would love to know when these things happen and be able to offer it to their students that are interested.
Right. Yep.
Even to be able to be the informant, because these kids wouldn't know. The government teachers themselves probably don't know. I just think this goes back to something we were talking about earlier, how important civic engagement is. And in our district, I'm sure my teachers are tired of me saying, but when I think of civic engagement, I don't mean I want our students writing bills about having a state or something, that isn't civic engagement. I don't want them writing bills but to me, my minimum definition of civic engagement is watches the news and cares. Because so many people don't know what's going on anymore. This is civic engagement. Going to a debate watch party, that's civic engagement.
Yeah, and I think the Commission on Presidential Debates, if we had high school or elementary debate, they would be thrilled. I mean, I think we could really make a lot of this. I think having some resources available as a debate commission, we've set aside a certain amount of money to help project too. So, and we could certainly fundraise around this event as well. So if you guys, there's a concerted effort and you need help with the funding of it, we can be a resource to help fund some of these things.
I think it would be cool, since they haven't worked with a state that has a statewide debate commission before, and you have the ability to contact all the schools. I think it would be really cool for them to know this debate is being watched in 400 classrooms, public school classrooms across, or whatever that number would be. We'd probably do it in every high school, and maybe junior highs, or maybe invite the junior highs to attend at a high school. But that would be a pretty powerful message about Utah's civic engagement.
That would be, and the thing is we're creating a story itself with all of these journalists here. They would want to go out to the high schools and say, look at this, across the state, high schools are gathering too.
And part of me is like, well, why are we stopping just with high school? If there's an elementary school,
right?
I don't feel like it should just be limited to high school, because like listening to that podcast and the questions this third grader was asking, I was like, holy smokes. Because we have kids that are learning, that are in accelerated classes starting in 4th grade. So in wanting to grow that curiosity that they have, I would say if elementary or middle school wants to do it, let's let them do it.
You know what, it would be fantastic. I mean, I love that thought. It would be so wonderful. And not only that, but then they're going home to their families, and the families are talking about, why are the issues important? What did you like that you saw tonight? What didn't you like? What made you uncomfortable, and why? And this whole civility piece is huge. There's so many great lessons to be taught from that. Oh.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. I look forward to. What we'll do is we'll make sure you have Nina's contact info. I'm sure you can probably Google the Utah Debate Commission and find it. But the nice thing about the web is I don't have to be the point of contact. I mean, you just reach out and figure out how to create this.
I've got a few cards I can pass around. And sorry I didn't bring more. And then yes. And then we'll talk more and things will filter down. But if you have any suggestions, you can email me directly. And like I said, we're looking at all options to take advantage of this in as many different ways as we can. So let us know how best to do that. And I welcome any and all input. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your work. Thank you. All right. So kind of germane to this is we've had a place for all, a summer conference, a civics conference for the last 2 summers. We don't have as much money this year to put it together as we did in the past, but we still have funding to make it happen. And I need to know, and we've talked a little bit about some of the things here today about some outcomes for that day. But I'd love for you to kind of think about what you would like to see that day, just generally, if there's anything that's like, oh, we really need to make sure we do X. And then think about, and we don't have to answer this right now, we're not gonna like get a doodle poll and figure out what dates will work, but I want you to think about just generally, timing wise, when a conference would work, and then who can help plan. And I do have some money to help pay at least a little stipend for people who can help serve on a planning committee to help make the conference happen. So that will sweeten the pot a little bit, I hope. And it doesn't have to be you, but it can be other people who you know who are good party planners. So what do you think would be essential as a part of that day civics conference?
What she was just talking about, I think this is a good springboard into awareness and involvement in presidential debates.
I mean, it's an election year, so I think any kind of election resources would be, could be a whole session, right? About.
Oh, absolutely.
So we've got that. That's
June is a great springboard into involvement with debates as well as everything else.
Like most of it should be focused around the 2020 election. I mean, this is like, this is what civics is. This is when you go out and make things happen, and this is it. These are the decision years.
Well, the conference last year in particular had 2 or 3 very strong strands, not just civics, but character ed. There were other things tied in somehow to those things. And I think part of the value in last year being fairly successful, I thought it was successful, my teachers liked it. Not there, I surprisingly a lot there. Was that the people who were there were very passionate about what it is that they were there to talk about, share, or to get. It wasn't just K-12.
character ed, some good keynotes, some good passionate perspectives. Yep.
The students that were there to present as examples were very well received.
Voice there.
We was good.
I think, and I think both elementary and secondary. I mean, I think that there's some possibilities. We've got to think about what are some examples out there of elementary students who are engaged. If we don't have the examples, then at least a session on how do we make that happen.
Well, we've got a group from We the People have done a presentation, the elementary kids at UCSS for the last couple of years. We can maybe invite them.
They did their the summer thing too. They had that group from, but they were high school kids.
High school
right?
kids.
They brought with them that
Yeah, they were great.
The group I talked to were junior high kids, and they were pretty.
All right. Anything else? So, 2020 election character. I mean, it's definitely character ed. Do you see any natural connections with the portrait of a graduate language that we've been using that looks at indicators like service and respect and collaboration and critical thinking? They're all things that we're saying we want graduates to be part of. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like we've got an opportunity there to show that social studies in particular is part of what it is that we're up to in public ed. I don't necessarily, I'm not saying have a session on it.
Booth there in the hall.
Right, just handing out the document, right? But I'm talking about at least using that to kind of inform the strands, so. All right, so next thing is the date. The first year we had it was toward the end of June. Last year we had it toward the front end of June. What's your sense?
From our experience, our district targets those first 2 weeks of summer. I think Alpine does too. That's it up right then, knowing that people are going to scatter after that. So if it's at the beginning of June, our teachers are have to decide, and they probably won't come.
If it's at the beginning, you say? Even though you had a great turnout last year?
We didn't do our summer PDs heavy like we started, like we will start doing them.
Okay.
Where it's paid and highly recommended. Not required, but close.
So how late is too late in June in your experience? Because we had a lot of attrition. I mean, when we were at the end of June, we had all these people who were very well intentioned about going to the conference, and we got about half the people at the end of June because they were like, I'm not feeling it today. Even though they were getting paid $100 or $150 to go, they didn't show. We can't pay them this year because we don't have the money. So we've got that issue. So I need to know when you think is the best time.
I would say close to the end of the school year or even close to the beginning of the school year, but not right in that middle. We're having struggle because we have a large national conference we're sending a lot of teachers to right in the middle, right straddling June and July, and we're struggling to get teachers. Like we're sending and we're paying.
Yeah, right. Okay.
To teach starts June 7th. That takes a handful of kind of ambitious teachers. You got your PD the 2nd of June.
We have ours the 1st and 2nd. Yeah.
The summer.
Yeah, we do. Right.
So,
I thought teachers got their summers off.
right? That was summer collaboration.
We've always held it in June. I mean, the issue is, I don't see something happening in August
No.
before school. I mean, I just don't see that, right?
And if you try to avoid everybody else's PD, then you're just those couple of days they would have had off.
Yeah. No, I mean, we'll look at people's calendars and we'll throw out a couple dates to you to just say it's either going to be June 8th or 10th or, like. And the reality is, it's like not everybody. We're never going to please everybody. Okay. Now, who's interested in helping plan? Because I'm going to need help. Depends on when it is.
Are there any districts that get out after Memorial Day, after the end of May? Like their school year's extended into June, that first week? I helped last year. What are you gonna be doing?
I can't afford her.
Okay.
So it's going to be. I mean, on a stipend of like $1,000 or whatever.
The issue there is Judy's contacts. We don't have those.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to help pay her for at least helping us get the contacts going. So we'll navigate that.
And I can help with my network. I know that a lot of the political scientists at BYU. I don't know that I want to commit to being on a planning committee, but I'm certainly willing to use the network I have to put you in touch with people.
Well, even if it's also even national people, I mean, we can afford possibly to bring us a few people in. We've done some work in the past, or have you guys ever done work with like document-based questioning or the DBQ projects or things like that? Do you have any interest in doing something like that? I mean, one idea would be that we could possibly have a seminar just for, last year what we did is we had people who came in and did a session of the Holocaust the whole day before, and then they also did a session the next day as part of the conference. So there was like this pre-conference institute. So we could do something around text-based analysis or document-based questioning or something, and then still have a session at the Civics Conference, or it could be some other topic. Think about that as well, because I can kind of cobble together money from different.
Is it something, this is just thrown out there, is it something that I want to add to the UCSS fall conference and say we're going to have Seems to be, if we're talking civics as opposed to character, quite a bit of overlap between those two conferences. It's the same target audience, maybe. Theirs is really targeted for K-12 teachers.
Right.
The Civics Conference was a little broader than that, I think.
People liked the June event. I'd like to make it happen possible. So.
Sarah McGrew will be a great speaker. She's one of Sam Weinberg's grad students, has graduated now, and she does this civic online. She's kind of spearheaded the civic online reasoning research he's been doing. I bet she's kind of new, so she wouldn't be, I don't think, as expensive maybe as somebody that's more.
Send us her contact.
Yeah.
Nail down. If we can nail down a couple
that
good
should be a
people
good
like that,
speaker.
that might be a good start. I know that Peter Adams spoke 2 years ago at the same kind of concept of trying to have this engaged conversation around media literacy and civic engagement and contextualization. I mean, he talked about a lot of those ideas. Germane and important. Do you have a comment, question?
No. Listen,
Sure.
do I want to help out? I think we have teachers that would be more qualified.
Oh, yeah, send them my way. Okay. All right. Standards Implementation Institute. You guys have a schedule here of summer institutes. We are doing major PD, a lot of it in every subject area, and I'm like, okay, well, we're going to glom onto this with some social studies opportunities as well. So here's what we've got. The schedule of summer professional learning. We have both elementary and secondary opportunities. Primarily, all of this registration will happen in March, where people can sign up. The professional development for elementary teachers is basically 2 days of examples of how to integrate within, make an integrated kind of approach to elementary instruction. 2 days, and then an additional 1 day that they can just focus in on social studies. So an elementary teacher could go to that 2 day and just do that. Or they could go to the 3 days. Or they could go to the 1 day of just social studies. Okay, so that's one option. At the secondary level, it's going to be, these are 4 day long sessions, but we're only doing 2 days in social studies. 2 days, Utah Studies for 2 days, or US History 1 for 2 days, or World History for 2 days. And it's standards and ideas and resources and implementation and lesson planning and stuff.
So is each site offering the same things? So you just go to the place
You're
closest
going to go to
to
the
where you
place
live?
closest to you, and if we have enough people, then it will run, and if we don't have enough people sign up, then we won't be able to offer it, and then people will have to choose someplace else to go, if they want to go. We don't know for sure how many, like there may be in some of the larger districts, we may have 2 sessions occurring instead of 1. But my experience with like core academies of old is this is a hard sell. It's the attrition, the numbers are elementary high, middle school pretty high, and then as you go up higher and higher in grade levels, the numbers just go down. So we'll see what happens, throw it out there. These are not going to be free either because we don't have the money. So it's like, this is going to be something teachers will have to pay for or encourage districts to have them pay for. It might be $50 a day. I can't remember, Brenda, do you remember whether lunch will be provided? I'm not even sure if we can provide lunch for people. I don't know. I can't remember the details. So I know I'm really selling it right now.
These are all content areas though, aren't they?
Yeah, all the content areas. I'm just like, I was like, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to include social studies. So, but I just didn't think that 4 days, I just didn't think I could get somebody to commit to a 4-day, even if they love Utah studies, they're not gonna give 4 days of their summer and pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got, okay? We have great people from all across the state who have signed up to either be designers or facilitators, and that's how we've tried to spread the wealth in terms of being able to pay them for their time.
I'd be happy to run the food trucks at these locations.
I know, right? Exactly. That's that. Okay, elementary standards. Let me tell you where we are with elementary standards update. You have you have a K-6 Social Studies Standards Review Committee report and recommendations. It's a handout here. Here's what happened, or here's what happens, is that elementary social studies standards process is like any other standards process. It's either 12 or 13 specific steps that we go through for core revision, for standards revision. Where do you find that process? Well, you just Google in USBE standards process, and there's the link if you want to see where and how it works. Right now, what happens is we had parents and social studies folks come together, and we had 2 meetings in November and December of last year. These are their recommendations. Standards should be revised. The current K-6 standards should be revised. That's their recommendation. Then there are additional recommendations here included in their recommendations. The State Board of Education then looked at these recommendations, and they don't vote on approving these recommendations or accepting them. They just the Standards and Assessment Committee sees that the parents have recommended revision, and we're going to move forward. So what's next? Well, what's next is we revise. We've got a whole range of lenses through which to look at as we look at the standards. And I'm going to need really good people to help. And that's where you come in. So my idea is that we would get elementary teachers who know their stuff, who know what kids are capable of, who are great lesson creators, know what's best for kids, and we come together and we crank out new standards that are best for kids and that inspire and excite and engage and do all the kinds of things that are here on this document and more. So, how do we find those writers? Well, I'm going to need your recommendations. But I'm also, here's an idea that I have, and then I want your feedback. My idea was that I would send you a link to a Google form where the people you recommend could apply. And they would list references, at least. And they would explain what interests them in being part of the standards writing group. And they would do a couple tasks. One is they would identify a standard in the existing standards that they think is good and explain why they think it's good. And they find a standard that they don't like, and they tell me how it could be improved. That's my idea. And then my idea is that those applications would come in, and we would ask other people, even maybe some of you, to just look at those without even knowing their names and just read what they wrote and pull a writing committee together based on that. So, ideas, feedback, tell me what you think.
I really like that idea. I know that I can think of several teachers that are on my social studies committee that I would recommend. to fill that out. But their first question is going to be, okay, is this during instructional time? Who's going to pay for my sub?
Yeah.
Will I be compensated? So all of those questions that they're going to ask, or is this going to be during the summer when I'm supposed to be at district professional development for my grade level? And those are all of the questions I know they're going to be asking me.
Yep.
The one other thing I would say is we have to make sure there's diversity on that committee. So if you've got, men and women and racial diversity, and I think that was really, really helpful when we wrote the secondary standards to have.
All right. I appreciate that perspective. I want to try to figure that out.
Could you just ask the questions about their gender and like we
Yeah,
fill
that's
out
the
so
question
many
about
times?
just what kinds of demographics we include, Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. So I appreciate that. And we need to make sure we answer those questions because otherwise people aren't even going to be interested if they don't know that, yes, we'll pay for their subs. Yes, we will try to minimize the amount of time we pull them out from school, but we will have to pull them out. Yes, they will be able to do kind of some of this crowdsourced, like, across, not just physically in the space, but I just think, it's an incredible professional learning opportunity to dig into these things. So that's how we have to sell it. Yeah.
Would you want to know sort of background qualifications?
That's a good question. That's something, that's a good idea as well. Thank you for that. I mean, we'll kind of think about adding that to the application. I don't want to make the application too onerous, but if they're not willing even to fill that out, then I know they're not going to be willing to dig into the standards like they need to, so.
They need to be committed.
Yep. And they will be committed. Okay, so the process is we will move forward. I can tell you that, no surprise, they will need to, I will protect them as much as possible from the winds of politics, but they will be entering into the political fray as a part of writing. Just, that's the way it is.
How many people are you looking to
I don't know,
have?
what do you think? I need people who have grade level experience. I need kindergarten, first grade, second grade people who, thanks, Jeff. It just can't be too unwieldy. It's like K6. So even 2 people per grade level is a dozen people. I think you can break people into groups to do some writing around different topics, but I still think that we want to have this kind of seamless K6 vertical alignment that doesn't occur if you have grade bands individually working on specific standards without making sure people have this kind of unified voice. So, I don't know. And I'm thinking that we can certainly also have like stakeholders, like Wendy from State History, or I mean, they could either be sounding boards, like an advisory board, like looking at what the writers are doing. You guys can certainly look at what the writers are doing as we're moving through it. It's just make this process as transparent and as open and as fun as possible, because it's really fun. I mean, social studies is the coolest thing ever. So that's the point. I don't know. And I've opened your experience.
Who are these people? Are they just ones who have made these recommendations, but they're not necessarily on the writing?
They're not on the writing team. Okay. Those people are 5 parents from the Speaker of the House, 5 parents from the President of the Senate, 7 people that we recommended. We come together, they look at the existing standards, they make recommendations. Here are what their recommendations were.
Okay.
That's how it goes.
And they're done.
They're done.
Okay.
How many did you have when you did the secondary standards?
I don't remember. Some of you were helping. Do you remember? We had different clumps for different, like geography had a team, and
Was there an attempt to align those standards vertically?
Yeah, but it was still that class. I mean, there's certain things about geography that are very geographic, you know. So, but yeah, there was the goal there was, especially with around the civic engagement, was to kind of try to weave that throughout. It doesn't mean that like third grade teachers couldn't, like that team of 2 or whatever, couldn't be writing on their own, but when they come back together to share their work, they'll make sure that they. Okay, so I will send out a request for, I'll probably just send you out the link to the Google form, and then you guys can just forward that on to people that you think would be great. I want to cast the net wide, but not too wide, right? I'm not going to ask anybody in Utah to serve. I need your expertise in terms of. All right, Summer Implementation Institute. A World History Association's conference is coming up June 25th and 27th through the 27th of 2020. And the World History Association is looking for local teachers to sit on some of their panels. This is June 25th through the 27th. So Bob Regan, who works with Big History and who works with the Gates Foundation, is really supportive of the World History Association, but he also really wants to see more K-12 participation. So here's an opportunity for if you've got some really awesome world history teachers who might think it's really cool to be a part of the World History Association conference in June, and to be a part of a panel looking at teaching in diverse classrooms, or teaching diverse classrooms, or teaching with non-text sources, or teaching with narrative. These are some of the ideas they have. So I need world history teachers that you could recommend. Have people that you're thinking of right now? I would love those names right now. I would love for you to just send Brenda or me a quick email saying, here are these teachers. And they all have a specific kind of email pattern. You can just tell us the dsdmail.net or whatever it is, and we'll let them know more about
But those are the 3 things they're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're looking at right now. It doesn't have to be just this, but the more they would be giddy if they could get some high school world history teachers interested. And I think there's some, like they're not going to charge people for the conference. I mean, they'll figure that stuff out. Okay.
Robert, can you send us the information?
Yeah, I've got, I don't know if I have the link. Yeah, I don't have the link to the conference itself. If you Google that, it'll give you a little bit more about the conference, but we can, and I think I already sent it out, but I'm not sure.
But they would need to be put in contact with you if they're interested in being on.
Yeah, yes, right. Yeah.
Is that in Arches? Or is that just a nice?
No, it's here in Salt Lake City. Yeah, they're just advertising Utah because it's a national conference. They're trying to gin up support by showing.
People from Rhode Island will think that they might just pop over and see.
Well, they think they're gonna. They're like figuring out Salt Lake City is probably somewhere near there, or maybe down in that little valley or something. So, yeah. Little do they know, it's called bait and switch. Works every time. Okay, Gateway to Learning Educator Workshops. Just so you know, opens March 2nd. Registration for this. These are $80, and teachers get 3 semester hours of college credit for taking these courses. And these are just some of the examples. John Reed is teaching about the U.S. Constitution, June 8th through the 12th. And there's another session specifically on the internment of Japanese during World War II. So those are 2 that I know of that are specifically social studies, history, that will work for college credit and also for help even with endorsement courses, so just spread the word, please, about those. So I will send out a reminder probably in the March newsletter. That's that the March 3rd is when registration. Anybody ever gone to any of those? Has anybody ever attended? Yeah. Corey, did you want to share?
Maybe I'll just give you an abbreviated version of, we have USET conference, which is a technology conference a lot of teachers attend in March, a month from now, and we will have a booth that will be set up just for social studies, anti-STEM, that's what it is, right? Where we'll talk about resources and tools and technology for social studies teachers. And I think that there's a couple of different ideas on that. One of them is, as we move from digital resources along the scale to say, well, this isn't so much a resource, this is a tool that you would use in a classroom. And there's another scale that says, does the teacher use this or does a student actually use this? And we try to push further down that way as well. And then there's another scale that says, this is general technology that's really amazing, that maybe isn't social studies specific, like Google or Canvas or something like that, that we would think all of our social studies teachers would benefit by using this. And if we could show them applications in social studies, that might be the hook that shows them, oh yeah, that would really help my teaching. And so we promote that. We say, here's a social studies example of a Canvas classroom, when in reality it could be anybody's classroom in Canvas. And then we get into those tools that are specific to social studies, maybe more general in terms of history or geography, and then even more specific to your class. Some of the tools that we'll highlight at USET are not new. For example, on the resource side, the video, they even call it a game, right? The what is the Mission US that started out with the Revolution Day decision making right before the Revolutionary War, and they have 5 episodes that they did over the years, and they were amazing when they first came out, and they still are. The first episode has now gone through a major revision, and they'll get the other 4 again because they were flash-based, which was all the rage, and now it's not going to work after this year. So they've reworked that one, and in doing that, as long as they had to rework that whole simulation, they've gone through the content as well. They've deepened the loyalist perspective, for example, and they've added some subtle things that make the decisions that students make in the moment more meaningful, not only for the game, but for them and for the conversation or the way that they're understanding the information on the screen. So very incredibly vast resources for teachers on how to use this. And the teachers in my district that use it think it's pretty powerful. It is really focused, I think, more for an 8th grade audience. 5th grade, it looks 5th grade-ish, but the depth shows up in 8th grade when they get in there. So that's one resource that's been updated. We are pushing, ESRI has these geo-inquiry activities, which we're strongly encouraging our teachers to look at. The idea that you can take a map and put a couple layers on it, and here's all the questions that really you could consider as a teacher to have the students consider. What's important about this map, or what's important about this idea? Do you want to pull one up? Is it worth the time to look at one? Yeah. They're not just subjects, so you can just look up geo-inquiries. I think it'll come right up. They're cross subjects, and they have one section that's upper elementary, and they have a couple that are clearly labeled high school. But other than that, yep, yeah. Scroll down so you can see the subjects from literature. They're all map-based, right? What's this one with the steps on it? Human geography, let's pick that one. So within that, it has 2 sets. The first one, which is the biggest, these are all free, easy, 15-minute, 20-minute lessons that are put together. And you don't have to have any software or licenses. There is a group at the bottom where they have level 2, where it says you need to have a school level license for the software, because the students are actually going to get in there and do some manipulation with the maps. But you can look at some of these things and say, let's pick one that we can look at up above. You name it? I don't know. That's good. Pick one. So this is what it looks like. It's a thing you can print out for your teachers. They can just look at it here. This is really what you're doing. Teacher, this is what you ask the students. Here's the questions. Here's the kind of thing you're going to do. And when you click on the map, there's a map near the top. A link to the map right here in the green bar. You can see the map opens, and if there's instructions for the teachers, it will tell you when this map opens, click here and then click here, and then you'll be ready to go. So over here on the side, here's the content. If you'll click on the left side where it says content, you can see the different layers that are available for this particular map that they put together, and it will say, you know, go look at this layer, ask these questions about it. If you add this layer, it changes the questions or the focus, and really they've done an awful lot of work there on the map. If you want students to get in and do their own map making or data understanding things, geteach.com has a tool where you can open up maps, put different layers, you choose the layers, and then you go figure out what you can learn from that. But this one does a pretty good job of saying, here's what kinds of things you can think about on this map and some of the connections that you wouldn't normally consider.
So the inferences you might make about why is Trinidad having names like Williamsville, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yep.
Or missions versus, okay.
I like them, you know, I looked at quite a few of them. I've looked at them over as I try to work with teachers that are maybe not even in social studies to say here, and I've tried to adapt some of these for elementary school as well that aren't. There's one section that's labeled for elementary. It's mostly social studies and science, but I've tried to adapt it for first graders, and it works. But it works when the teacher's standing up front with this map and they talk about it, and they really take their time to say, let's look at this, and maybe we can measure how far this is, but they don't have a concept of what is 800 miles. So what does that mean to them, right? They don't quite get that. So that kind of thing, we're trying to encourage teachers to say, here, it's prepackaged. Go through this, realize the value of having students really think about spatial data and numerical data and all these other things that are available. The census, for example, that is heavily being pushed, right? So do census. There are activities that they have out there. Somebody in my district made me align all of those to the state standards. All the activities available on the census site. I guess they got an assignment from some state meeting that they attended. They would do that. And so, of course, they passed that on me. Nice. And so I gave them a big, long list. Here, this fits this standard in 4th grade and this standard in 5th grade.
Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I'm sure I have it in my drive still.
Thank you.
And it's a stretch, right? To say, you know, why would my first grader who's talking about what a family looks like want to look at the census data on who lives in this household, how many are single parents, how many have parents living, but that information is all out there. And then they've taken that information and they're partnering data sources, and they've put together activities like this. They're not map-based, they're data-based, and they have a few of them out there. I'd say they have 30 or 40 activities that are already prepackaged to say, here, go look at this, go look at this piece. And then a whole vast rabbit hole of data to explore if you wanted to. That's just intriguing, but.
Right.
Yeah. These are awesome, but I just want to make a clarification that these are different than the national records I was
yes.
talking about earlier, so I just don't want to.
That's fine. We'll see which one has the trademark on the name, right? That's great. Cool. Thank you. Who here's been a USET before? You've probably not even heard of it. You've gone before. Okay. I mean, it is a good use of your time if you can encourage teachers or yourself to go. It's a pretty impressive conference looking at the impact of educational technology on the classroom. It's good stuff.
I moved it to County last year and this year.
So nice.
Not for the people coming from the north.
I know.
Davis, or people driving.
Chris made it all the way to Salt Lake District, so we're very proud.
He doesn't go past
St. George.
Awesome. All right, any other issues, ladies and gentlemen? I was hoping to be able to get us out of here early.
I just have a quick question. Are any of your districts looking at Summit, the Summit Learning Platform? Does that well with anybody? It's like kind of like Canvas. It's a platform. But when you participate, it's, I guess Google paid for it all. It's free. You apply, different schools apply, and then it comes with components. It has all these cognitive skills. Anyway, it's a complete sort of packaged curriculum. It's all there. Everything they read, all the tests, everything. Modify it a little, but it's, we put our new high school, Farmington High, they opened with it last year. And then this year, elementary school, Farmington Elementary, opened with it. Next year, Farmington Junior High, 7 other junior highs, 1 high school are all moving to it.
So does, like, all the curriculum materials are
Yeah.
in it?
Yeah. You can choose kind of what you want to do. And I mean, I'm just barely starting now that we've only had 1 school on it, so it's not been a big
Is
part of
it
my life.
like a Canvas?
No, it's more like, I mean,
Content,
it's more like what?
like Canvas with content.
Like Canvas with content.
Okay.
Like you guys in your district have been more for packaged stuff like that in the past anyway, right?
Not in social studies, but
Well, I mean, across the board, like videos, we'll go buy our videos rather than
yeah,
find our own, right?
right. We bought big.
Well, I mean, if you like it and it's important to share.
I
mean,
just
the other
wondered
thing
if anybody
is-
else knew much more about it, as much with some, because I haven't known that much about it. So now I'm going to be exploring it. And if somebody had more information.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of us, especially because a lot of us have secondary background, but we don't have the elementary background. At least I'll speak for myself. So as decisions are made about curricular materials for schools, it would be important for us to know about them so we can figure out whether it's how to align standards with those kinds of
So
materials.
that's, I guess, what I have to do is go through their whole platform and align their materials to our standards.
Right, and then once you do that, when other districts buy it, they can just get all that information from you, not have to do it. Thanks for doing that for us, Chris. I appreciate it. All right, well, thank you folks very much. Great to see you all. Take a bite for the road, please, and we'll talk to all of you.